Good day, everyone. My name is Nicole Uggan, and for many years, women were viewed as stay-at-home wives that must clean and cook for the family. However, throughout the years, many of those norms have been challenged, and now you see many women in many male-dominated career fields like the military and police force. Now, according to Barry, on January 24, 2013, U.S. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta and Chairman Joint Chief of Staff General Martin Dempsey announced that we are eliminating the direct ground combat exclusion rule for women, and we are moving forward with a plan to eliminate all unnecessary gender-based barriers to service. Women are starting to be more mentally, physically, and emotionally stronger to be able to handle stress and combat situations. With the necessary training, females can become resilient and develop into strong combat warriors. That said, according to CAMROC, on 1 January 2016, different roles for combat were offered and open to women in the military to include positions like Navy SEALs, Infantry Marine Corps, Army Rangers, or parajumpers in the Air Force to firing motors, leading infantry soldiers, or driving tanks in combat. Although today, there is still the social issue and debate on whether females should fulfill those combat roles, which brings me to the different ways of thinking or the debate on the two different spectrums. Proponents argue that women have been serving the country for years and prevention from combat operations is discriminatory against women. Some feel that yes, women can serve as long as they can pass the same physical test as men. According to Sisters in Arms, some pros include ability serve versus gender. Women are capable and if qualified once gender is arbitrary. Including women into different roles keeps the military force strong by allowing change of culture and tradition and inclusion into the same positions as men. Women are more effective in some situations than men, and this can enable a stronger personnel base and a more proficient entity. One study examined the correlation between war zone exposure and post-deployment relationship with females and their families and found no association between combat exposure or alcohol misuse and post-deployment family functioning. However, relationship satisfaction was low due to some post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms. The mental state of females can equal the mental state of male soldiers. Another study found that women that served in Iraq and Afghanistan under Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom are resilient to combat-related stress as men. No gender differences were found in perceived war zone threats. Females can conquer many things and are resilient to different stressful combat situations. Now, on the other hand, opponents argue that allowing women to serve in these combat roles would degrade the military's ability to fight. Women are not physically capable as men of fighting in combat roles. Men are more likely to risk the success of the mission to protect women. Combat places are high risk for women to be put in sexual assault positions. According to Sisters in Arms, some comms may be that some women may be able to meet the standards, but most will not. Women serving in this new position may hinder unit morale, cohesion, and effectiveness. According to Simmons, perhaps the fact that most militaries have excluded females from combat is nothing more than a coincidence of universal proportions. Women may get pregnant and affect the deployability of a unit. Women may be more likely to be abused by the enemy. Now, there are two different sides of this debate, and as of 2016, females can serve in combat roles, which now brings me to how the legalities were influenced to rescind the previous rule. According to CAMROC, since 1990, the Department of Defense has slowly been lifting or repealing laws that prohibited women from serving in different air, ground, and naval combat units. Although some ground combat positions were restricted like the Navy SEALs or Army Rangers. Since then, the lines have been blurred and women still have been serving in combat roles. That said, end of 2012, several female service officers challenged the restrictions, stating that it was unconstitutional under the Fifth Amendment and it tested their rights for equal protection. A couple of months later, another lawsuit comes out with the same agenda, and the Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, directed military departments to review occupational standards. Now, on December 3rd, 2015, the Secretary of Defense, Ashton Carter, ordered the military to open all combat jobs to women with no exception. As of September 2016, at least 9 women joined the ranks and were accepted to different combat roles in various branches. It was the constant, repetitive message of changing the status quo and non-conscious influence of today's society and having females more inclusive to shorten the ceiling gap that influenced the final change and rescinding of the laws and policies that prohibited women from entering combat roles. Again, even though this has been lifted, there are several concerns or issues like intergroup conflict that can occur with females in these positions, which brings me to discuss different social relations. All that said, stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination can arise with females in these combat roles. The cohesiveness of a unit is essential in order to not have intergroup conflict. The whole relationship is based on the perception of females and if they can fulfill these roles. Some studies show that cohesiveness can be hindered, while others can be strengthened. Again, according to Simmons, the mere presence of women in a combat zone creates a sense of survival that men will protect women. Females are also at risk of getting pregnant and altering the mission. Women are also, according to some, physically incapable of completing that of what a male can achieve. On the other hand, according to Tepe and a lot of other people, there are gaps to studies found by policymakers, physicians, and leaders into why females are incapable. For example, with research, education, and adaptation, women can learn ways to protect themselves from pregnancy, or females can learn new physical training techniques that will prepare them for battle. Now that we've talked about all those 3 different things like social thinking, social influence, and relations of the issue, let's talk about some theories and perspectives on this issue, or to help understand this issue more. The socioculture theory helps describe the social issue. According to HE educators, socioculture perspective is a theoretical viewpoint that searches for the causes of social behavior and influences from larger social groups. That said, the Department of Defense and culture play a significant role on the different perspectives. According to Farnell, women today plays a huge role in an integral part of the force. While it is currently the norm for men to only fulfill combat roles, women are now fighting those norms and stepping into positions not usually derived by them. The military culture has decades and decades of male social models in combat fields, and today many of these norms are altered to create a more inclusive social culture environment. All this will influence the direction of one's social thinking, influence, and relation to this topic. Will it be pro-combat roles or anti-combat roles for females? Another theory is the social learning theory and reciprocal determinism in it. The social learning theory and reciprocal determinism is another theory or perspective that helps describe this social issue. According to Bandura, in the social learning theory, causal processes are conceptualized regarding reciprocal determinism. Viewed from this perspective, psychological functioning involves a continuous reciprocal interaction between behavioral, cognitive, and environmental influences. With this issue, the military culture, physical surroundings, friends, and families all contribute to the environment and impact of this topic. The education, training, beliefs, and attitudes can add to the person's cognitive ability on this subject, and the behavior of women in combat roles and people surrounding them all contribute to the influence of this issue. All combined, the environment, cognitive abilities, and behavior of women all determine whether or not one will agree or disagree with women in combat roles. That said, to provide more of an in-depth investigation and understanding of this topic or issue, several different research types can be used to research this topic, to include surveys, questionnaires, and correlations. Studies help research a significant number of military members and their thoughts on this issue. Questionnaires help gather a more in-depth interpretation on what people honestly think about the situation. Correlations can help determine the relationship between women and their physical, emotional, and mental state of performing in combat positions. Studies, again, like surveys, help research the significant number of military members and their thoughts on these issues. All this helps study females and males in combat roles, and it helps to compare the differences or similarities between the two. Finally, let's talk about the specific career fields or disciplines that can be suited for addressing this issue. While all this information helps with the different branches of the military, like the Air Force, Marines, Army, and Navy, it also helps in other male-dominated career fields like the police force, or firefighters, or other criminal justice career fields. It can also help with different disciplines, especially like, again, force protection agencies, or again, all criminal justice career fields. Females aren't seen much in these career fields, but learning about women in combat roles and the different stances for each case can help educate others on others in these different types of forces. Okay, now these are all the references I've used for this, and I wanted to just thank you all for your time, and I hope this helps you gain a little bit more insight into the different perspectives on the social issue of females in combat roles. Are you pro or anti-female combat roles? The question is really up to you. Thank you and have a good day.